We never had a problem with the Jews. We love the Jews as much as we love the Christians.
But you have a problem with Israel.
You love the Jews just as much as you love the Christians, meaning you don't love the Jews because you don't love the Christians. You consider the Christians pagans. Piers Morgan brought Ahmed Al-Naouk from Gaza. Now watch how the guest purposefully ignores his question about Hamas. How convenient. Let's take a look.
Ahmed Al-Naouk is a Palestinian journalist and the co-founder of We Are Not Numbers, whose book of the same name tells the story of young Gazans in their own words. He's also has an extreme story of personal loss in this war, and he joins me in the studio now. Ahmed, it's good to see you. I was aware of you because you tweeted in April of last year on X, you posted on X, I blame you, Piers Morgan, me, for their murder and the murder of all innocent people in Gaza. This came after news of you losing a huge number of your family in an airstrike. First of all, my deepest condolences to you over the loss of your family members. And second, I would never judge anyone who fires off intemperate thoughts in a moment. So I didn't take that personally. Thirdly, I was getting that from quite a few people. A lot of those people now are praising me because they think I've switched sides. And to be clear with you, I don't take sides. I never have done. I've tried to platform people on both sides throughout this whole war.
Piers Morgan has a tendency to switch to what the masses want to get more clout, to get more views. Allegedly, of course. It's all just a thought. It's not for sure. But that's a trend I've noticed.
I think that's been really important. But it's good to see you in the studio and to meet. We don't know each other. First of all, when you posted that to me, why did you post that? Why did you blame me for what had happened to your family?
Well, thank you for having me first, and thank you for having so many Palestinians on your show. I don't think you can blame me for saying this to you, Piers, because you and I are journalists, and we know how important the role of journalists in this world is. And I've known you for a long time, and I have been following you for a long time. And I have always looked at you as this prominent British journalist. You're one of the most prominent journalists in the world. And then October the 7th happened, and I was watching how you covered the news in Gaza. And you were very angry at this October the 7th, and that's okay. You have the right to be angry at October the 7th.
Were you?
Yes.
You were?
Yes.
Took him a long time to answer. That's enough for you to understand what he thinks about October the 7th. And he'll ignore talking about October the 7th, clearly, because that's a blow to the Arabs living in Gaza. And they don't like talking about that. They'll always switch to something more emotional. You'll see.
You were angry at what Hamas did that day?
Yes, I was.
Israeli people? The slaughter, the mayhem, the murder, the kidnapping of babies and Holocaust. This is one of the things I kept asking all the Palestinian guests, which is probably why you had a view that somehow I was against the Palestinian people. I wasn't, but I was certainly against anyone that wouldn't absolutely, unreservedly condemn what Hamas did that day. That had to be a starting point for any constructive conversation.
Okay, so you've said that for a long, long time. We have been talking about that for 20
But why would that be wrong?
Months. It's not wrong to feel angry about what happened. I wholeheartedly stand against harming civilians. All of my work, all of my life, all of my principles is against harming any civilians, whoever they are. I'm against all of that. But my problem, Piers, is that I have looked a lot for you. And then for the past 20 months, you have been repeating this over and over and over and over again, as if October the 7th was the beginning of everything. And you never looked at what happened before October the 7th and what happened 20 months after October the 7th.
The thing is, Ahmed, I never took a view that anything that happened on either side before October the 7th could possibly justify what Hamas did that day.
Yep.
There is no justification for that scale of terrorist attack. None. Nada. Nothing. So I wasn't prepared to countenance anyone sitting on that chair or in any other location I was in, who if I said to them, do you condemn what Hamas did? If they refused to answer, then I would challenge them angrily about that, as I would do the other way round, as I am now about what Israel's been doing. So I campaigned against the Iraq war, right? When I was editor of the Daily Mirror, I campaigned against things I think are wrong. And I will challenge and harangue people when I think they're supporting things that are wrong. So I'm just curious, though, why you've made it so personal against me. Do you blame me for the loss of your loved ones. I didn't understand that.
Okay. So everyone appreciates that you stood up against the war in Iraq. We also wanted you to stand up against the genocide that is taking place in Gaza. And you changed your talks recently, and I appreciate that. I love that.
But did they all get a memo to just say that this war is a genocide? Because all of them say the same thing all the time. They call a war a genocide. They call a war ethnic cleansing. They call a war by definitions that don't apply to their situation. If you repeatedly hear it over and over again, you'll start believing that that's the case.
But please remember that, Piers, bad journalism kills. Bad journalism killed people. You know that Israel could not carry out a genocide in Gaza without the justification of the mainstream media. And unfortunately, I don't blame you specifically for the murder of my family.
Well, you did.
I blame all of the mainstream media on the murder of my family, and you were one of them. Unfortunately,
Well, you blame me personally.
I blame you personally as one of the mainstream media who justified the murder of the Palestinians and dehumanized.
Nobody was murdered. Dying as a war casualty is not being murder. If you drive down the street and you intentionally run into someone with the purpose of killing them, then it's considered to be a murder. But if you drive into somebody by accident, you didn't see them, they had no vest on that reflects light, and by accident you go into them, that's not murder because it has no intent of killing the people, and they're going to get charged differently. So the fact that he's choosing the term murder is exactly like choosing the word genocide and the word ethnic cleansing and all these terms that are nonsense.
Dehumanize the Palestinians.
I never
over
justified the
past.
murder of Palestinians. I only said...
Not directly,
I
indirectly.
only said that I believed Israel had a fundamental right and duty to defend its people after that appalling attack, a series of attacks, particularly as Hamas, through its official spokesman on camera, had said they were prepared and wanted to do this again and again and again.
Well, the thing is,
You talk about genocide,
Yeah.
that is genocide. That is actually what genocide is. When you want to kill as many Jews as you can kill.
that's the problem, Piers.
Yeah, but that is genocide.
No, that is the problem. You always say that they want to kill the Jews.
They
Piers,
do.
That is dangerous. You and I know that.
But they do.
Our problem is not against
make
the
any-
Jews.
they don't make any secret of it.
No. Our problem is not with the Jews. And even Hamas' problem is not with the Jews. It is with the Israelis.
Why do they kill so many Jews then?
They did not kill Jews. They killed Israelis. And I don't justify killing of Israel. It's not that I want them to kill Israelis.
What
But there's a
religion do you
huge
suspect
difference.
most of the Israelis were?
It doesn't matter.
Half of the world's Jewish population lives in Israel, 7 million Jews. So if it's against Israelis, then you're against the Jews living in Israel. The majority are Jews. So of course it's against the Jews. It's in the charter of Hamas. What are you, Majnuna?
But
does matter.
No, it makes a huge difference. They were not attacked because they were Jews. They were attacked because they were Israelis.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a huge difference.
How many of the people who were killed were not Jewish?
It doesn't matter. But would you like?
Of course it matters.
No, it matters. Let me ask you a question. So many Palestinians were killed. Thousands of Palestinians were killed. Would you call Israel killed the Muslims in Gaza? You would say the Palestinians. And the Israelis were Israelis. They were not there as Jews. They were there as Israelis. And that is dangerous, Piers. It's not a religious war. This is a war between colonization and colonized, occupiers and occupied.
Nope.
People who have been living under blockade, under siege, under occupation for the past 77 years. It's not with the Jews.
Oh my God. The only difference between what happened with Hamas and Israel on October 7th and after October 7th is that Hamas went intentionally to kill as many Jews as possible and to take as many people as possible hostage, which are huge violations of international law. And Israel tries to retaliate against Hamas. Civilians die in the way. And then this guy says, yeah, they're just after Palestinians, not Muslims. See how they're changing the narrative? See how they're trying to make you think that Israel has something negative against the Palestinians and not against Hamas? They barely mention the word Hamas.
We never had a problem with the Jews. We love the Jews as much as we love the Christians.
But you have a problem with Israel.
You love the Jews just as much as you love the Christians, meaning you don't love the Jews because you don't love the Christians. You consider the Christians pagans. That's exactly the point. We love the Jews exactly as we love the Christians. Thank you. Point proven.
Please.
Of course, we have a problem with the Israelis as occupiers.
How can you say you have no problem with the Jews, but you have a problem with the Israelis? Given that most
There's a huge
Israelis are
difference.
Jewish.
I'm just astonished that you can't make the difference between the Jews and the Israelis, Piers.
His body language proves differently. But if you want to challenge this thought, no problem. Let's challenge this thought. When Gaza was occupied by Egypt from 1948 until 1967, did the Gazans oppose the Egyptians? Of course not. They never wanted to have a Palestinian state under Egyptian rule because it has nothing to do with being colonized, because they were not colonized. They were not colonized. Jewish people cannot be colonizers. They're the indigenous people. It has to do with the fact that they're living under Jews, and they don't like that. And they don't like living next to Jews in order for them to build the Islamic Khalifa. It is a religious conflict.
Why? Huge difference.
Most of them are Jewish.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes, but they're called Israelis.
I'm astonished you would try and draw a distinction.
There's a huge difference.
Hamas don't give a damn about whether they're Israelis or anything else. They care about killing Jews. They made it no secret.
No, listen. I am the last person on earth to defend Hamas.
Good.
But just because I don't like Hamas, that does not make me like amplify and exaggerate in their in what they think and lie about them. Do you know Ahmed Yassin, the founder of Hamas? Do you know him?
Not personally.
No, he was the founder of Hamas, and he was known as handicap who Israel killed. But anyway, he was once asked, what is your problem with the Jews? And he said it clearly, and I'm quoting him, I don't have a problem with the Jews. If my brother, if my cousin occupied my country and killed me, I would have a problem with them.
That's why in the charter of Hamas, when they were established, it said that the trees and the stones will shout when there's a Jews behind them. They will say, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill it. Israel will exist until Islam obliterates it. It's in their charter, guys. It's in their charter. He's straight up lying to you.
Problem with the Palestinians is against Zionism, against Zionists, against Israelis.
So why don't they kill innocent Israeli people then? Innocent women, children, grandmothers.
Don't ask me that question.
Why do they kidnap babies? Why do they kidnap Holocaust survivors?
Ask them. Don't ask me. I'm not one of them.
You're trying to explain their ideology, and I'm telling you, they are an undisguised death cult.
It all makes difference.
Intent on killing as many Jews as they can kill.
It's dangerous when you make this religious war.
It's dangerous when you try and pretend they're not after killing Jews.
Of course not. They're not, Piers. Come on. They're after killing.
Come on. You don't think Hamas target Jews?
By saying come on, it's trust me, bro. It's my source. I know everything.
Of course
because
not.
They're Jewish?
Of course not.
It's nonsense.
No, it's not. I'm surprised that you're saying this, Piers. Genuinely, I'm surprised. There's a huge difference.
You're surprised that I think Hamas target Jewish people?
Of course. Of course I am.
I find that staggering, Ahmed.
Why?
Because it's obviously a ridiculous thing to say.
Why?
Because obviously they target and murder as many Jewish people as they can get their hands on.
Of course not.
And you say it's because they're Israelis, not Jewish.
10 seconds ago, Ahmed told Piers that his journalism is dangerous. His journalism is dangerous. Ahmed's journalism is dangerous. By pretending like Hamas is not after killing Jews and globalizing the Intifada? What are you, on crack?
They're occupiers because they occupied our country.
And they're Jewish.
No, just because they occupied our country.
Never had a country.
Because they're colonizers. Because they came to our country, kicked us out in 1948, and they killed thousands of Palestinians, including my grandparents.
You know why Israel was set up. It was set up after World War II, in which Jewish people were the victims of an appalling Holocaust by Hitler and the Nazis, where 6 million of them were exterminated purely because of their ethnicity and being Jewish.
That's correct.
So the Jewish people were given the state of Israel.
My country.
Okay,
it wasn't your country. It was a region. And this region was shared between the Jews, the Muslims, the Christian, the Bedouin. Everybody lived here, not in peace. Of course not. You're not going to catch me saying in peace. They never lived in peace. We had many massacres before towards the Jews coming from the Muslims, even before the Zionist movement was created in 1897. The Arab leaders kicked you out by starting a war, by never settling you guys.
I understand. Listen, I understand the argument. I understand the whole history and the whole argument.
But it
wasn't Israelis given that place. It was the Jewish people.
Yeah, but who are you to give the Jewish people my country?
I'm not giving it to them.
I'm not talking about you personally. Yeah. I'm talking about those who send the Zionists to come and kill our families and take our lands.
Wow, he's really twisting the facts, guys. And I'm going to pause the video right here and I'm going to attach the full video in the description. But listen to this, okay? How can we come to take your country, if you build your Al-Aqsa Mosque on the holiest site of the Jews, the Temple Mount, where we had Bayt al-Maqdas, we had it, and then it was destroyed, and then you built Al-Aqsa right on top of the holiest site for the Jewish people. Only Muslims are allowed to enter Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jews are not allowed to enter. How can you say we go inside Palestine, which was a region at the time, not a country, never a Muslim entity, never, it was never a Muslim entity, ever. How can you say we walked inside, we went inside and kicked you guys out? The Arab leaders started a war against us, and because of that, we had to retaliate. Because of that, people had to flee. People were told to leave. How can you lie like this on camera? I'll tell you why. Because you're a Palestinian propagandist, just like the rest of them. And you'll do whatever it takes to push the Hamas propaganda to the Western world, which is pathetic. But people like me are going to expose your ass. And all this pity game of you playing, yeah, but how can you say this? They came to the country. Again, emotional, trying to play on emotional. None of that is true. We did not come to your country. You did not welcome us with open arms. Don't start a war against us. Don't face a counter war to protect the Jewish people, which is allowed. And then you don't have to leave. Very simple. Tov, Ahmed? Yalla. Thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support me financially, you can do so through Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. I'll see you again in the next video.